According to CBS News in 2024, marijuana is legal in 24 U.S. states. However, according to the CDC in the same year, 3 in 10 people who use the drug have cannabis use disorder. Marijuana should not be legalized in the United States. Today, I'll be discussing the harms of marijuana usage, who's to blame for the issue, solutions, and lastly, the costs and benefits of implementing these solutions. I'm a credible source for this argument because I have done extensive research on it, and I've also witnessed several people in my personal life become dependent on the drug. For the sake of this presentation, I'll be limiting my discussion to legalization of marijuana in the United States. I'll be arguing that it should not be legalized for medicinal or recreational use, and that it should not be legalized federally or on the state level. Marijuana has several harms to those who use it. Using marijuana has mind-altering effects, such as enhanced senses and changes in mood. According to Yale Medicine in 2023, about 30% of current marijuana users meet the criteria for addiction and cannabis use disorder, cannabis being another name for marijuana. Regular use of the drug can result in the development of tolerance and dependence, meaning a person will need more and more marijuana to achieve the same effects. According to Johns Hopkins in 2022, marijuana use in mid to late adolescence results in increased risk of developing psychosis and other disorders, such as schizophrenia. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse in 2024, marijuana can cause impaired thinking and memory. Also, since marijuana is typically used by smoking it, it can cause permanent lung damage and greatly increase the risk of lung cancer. According to Yale Medicine in 2023, data suggests that cannabis use is associated with motor vehicle accidents and can compound the risky effects of alcohol on driving. With marijuana legalization becoming more and more common across the U.S., marijuana usage has become more prevalent, and thus the harms. According to Dr. Levy from the New York Times in 2024, there's been a significant rise in chronic psychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia, which is believed to be caused by cannabis. According to the Yale School of Medicine, the TH content in marijuana, which is the mind-altering component that is linked to all the harms, has risen from 4% to 17%, and it continues to increase as a result of widespread legalization in the U.S. So now that I've discussed the harms of marijuana use, let's move on to my next point, which is who is to blame for the issue. State governments and their legalizing of marijuana, both for medical and recreational purposes, are to blame for the increased instances of the negative effects of marijuana. When states legalize it, it can be produced and sold. This results in it being readily available to the public and provides people with access to the harmful substance, which they can use as much as they like. Even when it's only legalized for medicinal purposes, medical marijuana cards are easily obtained for a doctor for very common conditions, such as chronic pain, nausea, and anxiety. Once the card's obtained, the holder can use the drug recreationally and even share it with others if they wanted to. Companies that grow marijuana and produce products, as well as dispensaries that sell the products, are also to blame for rising negative effects of marijuana usage. According to Pew Research Center in 2024, 79% of Americans live in a county with at least one cannabis dispensary. In addition, there are nearly 15,000 cannabis dispensaries in the U.S. As a result of this easy access to marijuana, according to the World Health Organization in 2024, due to widespread legalization, about 19% of Americans have used the drug at least once. It's no wonder that cannabis use disorder, as well as other harms from marijuana usage, are becoming more and more common. So now that we've discussed who's at fault, let's move on to the next point, which is how we can solve this issue. Due to the fact that there are several negative effects of marijuana usage, it should not be legalized federally. According to the CDC in 2024, cannabis use directly affects the parts of the brain responsible for memory, learning, coordination, and reaction time. According to the Library of Congress in 2024, marijuana remains illegal at the federal level. However, in recent years, there's been a push towards legalization. Although there has been this push towards federal legalization, the federal government should refrain from legalizing the harmful substance. In addition to not legalizing it across the United States, the federal government should also pass legislation that would prevent the production, selling, and usage of marijuana, in turn overpowering the states that have legalized it. According to CBS News in 2024, the drug is legal for recreational use in 24 states. It's also legal for medicinal purposes in 12 states, and only illegal in 12. Marijuana should not be legalized in the United States, and if the government were to pass legislation completely outlawing it, it would overpower the laws already passed by various states and would therefore make marijuana usage, production, and distribution illegal across the entire country. The primary cost of this policy would be that marijuana wouldn't be available for medicinal use and therefore would not be available for medical treatment. However, despite its potential medicinal uses, marijuana still has several negative effects. And it's my argument that the negative effects of marijuana, such as addiction, lung damage, and psychiatric disorders, far outweigh the potential treatment uses of the drug. The benefit of this policy is that marijuana would not be available for people to use medicinally or recreationally. And without access to this harmful drug, people would not suffer the negative effects of its use. So, there would be less psychiatric disorders, less lung damage, and less addiction, all caused by marijuana. So, in conclusion, marijuana should not be legalized in the United States for use, either recreationally or medicinally, at the state level or the federal level. We've discussed the harms of using marijuana, such as addiction, dependence, and psychosis, lung cancer. We've also discussed the blame, which falls on both the state governments that legalize the harmful drug and those that produce and distribute it to the public. The plan of action for this includes the federal government both refraining from legalizing the substance and passing legislation that would outlaw it across the United States, overpowering the states that have already legalized it. Finally, we discussed the costs of marijuana being unavailable for medical purposes, as well as the benefit of it being unavailable for use and therefore harmful effects. As I leave you today, I encourage you to pay attention to just how prevalent marijuana is around you. Pay attention to when and where you see it being promoted, or even if you know people in your personal life or you yourself use the drug. When you see this, I want you to remember just how harmful that drug can be, as well as how we can resolve this issue.